So one of the conundrums I'm facing, and my wife and I have talked about this, so I shouldn't say one of the conundrums I'm facing, one of the conundrums we're facing is the idea of what do we do with introducing religion and faith and all that to our daughter? Because we want her to have exposure to it. We want her to be able to feel comfortable with it, but we don't want to feel like it's shoved down her throat. And there's the balance of what's the best way to do that, because oftentimes it feels like, and I have little experience with churches and things like that now that have youth programs, but it feels like it's awfully immersive, which isn't a bad thing, but to go from 0 to 100 versus just maybe kind of inchworming your way along. So the conundrum is, what do we do with that? Because you've got your traditional Catholic churches, which I was just talking about, that I do not love sort of the even the physical layout of them, and then sort of the formality of, the standing up, the sitting down, the singing, the doing all that. And then you've got that's sort of on one side, and then on the other side, you've kind of got some of these mega churches where they've got rock bands and huge stages and fireworks and smoke and people are screaming and dancing and all that. And hey, if you're into that, that's great. I'm not judging. That's probably not for us right now, at least. And our daughter would probably be overwhelmed with that kind of an environment. So, we're trying to find a balance of something that's modern, but something that's maybe a little bit more low key. And trying to figure that out is kind of difficult. But from the lesson that I learned about knowing the difference between religion and faith, the advice that I would give myself years ago, or my daughter as she's growing up, would be find your faith first and then worry about the religion later. Because if you're sincere and you're genuine and you're seeking out the idea of faith, and you're seeking out understanding what everything that's involved in that, and you believe that there's a higher power, God or whoever your higher power is, then that higher power isn't going to care if this religion says this person is a saint and this religion doesn't, or this religion you have to jump on one leg for 2 minutes before you can have the Eucharist, and this one you have to do a handstand for 2 minutes before. None of that matters with faith. If you're going to God with an open heart and you're asking, or you're being thankful, or whatever the case is, God does not care about those kind of details. So the advice that I would give would be find your faith. And I think the best way that you can do that is just be open-minded. And if you are accepting that there is a higher power and that there is a God, then just start there. And if you have to say a prayer, say it casually, say it conversationally. Don't worry about the wording of certain prayers. Another Catholic church, whatever. A couple of years ago, I remember it was all in the news because in one of the prayers, the Our Father, which for anybody that's not Catholic is like the most sacred prayer for the Catholic Church, or one of the most sacred prayers, they changed like 2 words or 3 words. And it was just like this, had to get everybody assembled. The Avengers had to assemble. There's voting and back and forth and deliberation, and it's like, who cares? It's a couple of words, what's the intention of the prayer? Are we still meeting the intention of that? So with praying, once in a while, our daughter says, let's do a prayer at dinner or something like that. So we make a joke of it, and we see how fast we can make the sign of the cross, and we try to be silly about it or whatever. But I think that's a good way to start, because then the kid or whoever it is able to find and kind of discover and ask questions about that on their own, as opposed to literally having the book thrown at them. So the story that I gave you about us being rejected by the Catholic Church for some type of a marriage ceremony because we wanted to make sure my father was still alive and well to be a part of that, and unable to baptize our daughter until we got married for a 3rd time. That kind of chapped my ass, if you will, about the Catholic Church. The lesson, looking back, I think, learning is understanding the difference between religion and faith. And the advice would be to find your faith first and worry about the religion later on.